All right, so we've decided to kick the year off with a very topical discussion for the Foreign Correspondents Club and take a look at how the media environment in Thailand is changing, how we're shifting over from traditional print media, TV, etc., to online and digital offerings. And all the people that we have assembled to talk to you about it are in the cutting edge on the new side of the media. They have histories in the older side as well. We have Ranchita Sirovorilai, media director for the Nielsen Company, which is an enormous global information network based in New York. Ranchita has been with Nielsen for 15 years and was responsible for rolling out a digital rating system for the Thai market in 2016, and she monitors the industry ad spending and does consumer media research. So Ranchita is going to give us a big picture of how this market is moving. Then we will follow, I'm going to do this in order of who's speaking, we'll follow with Tiranai Charuvastra, who is the news editor at Khao English. He's going to talk about Khao more generally. It's part of the Matichon group. But Khao English was launched in 2013 and is an online newspaper that has earned itself quite a reputation for plucky reporting for everything from news and politics to calamity and lifestyle. He's good on the calamity. Then we are going to have Cod. Cod Satrusai Sang is the editor-in-chief of Thai Inquirer, which is due to launch on January the 15th, and it will be a blend of journalism, criticism, fiction, satire and poetry, quite exotic. Cod has worked around town. He's worked at Deutsche Presseagentur, Reuters, more recently Asian News Network, which was a regional pull together of newspapers, and he's reported across Asia Pacific and the Middle East. And finally, Varunai Vanijaka, who was one of the pluckiest columnists on the Bangkok Post for many years. He's the founder and editor-in-chief of Disrupt, which is a digital news media platform due for launch in March. He's an award-winning columnist from his Bangkok Post days. He was the founding editor of 3 publications, GQ, Guru and Bangkok Magazine. He also lectures on media and political communications at Thammasat and Webster universities, appears on various news channels, is a popular invited speaker, and he's also very readable on Facebook. If you go up there, there's lots of amusing comments. Right, we're going to kick off with Ranchita, who's going to give us the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. And first of all, thank you, Richard, as well, to invite Nelson to be here. So it's very precious of us to meet all of you today. So Nelson is the company that measures the audience. So we work across with many stakeholders in the media industry. Nelson is not only in the media industry, but we're also working with other, like in terms of the retail measurement, in terms of the consumer research as well. But today I'll talk about more in terms of the media landscape that we measure. So the way we measure the audience, we work across with the media owner, with media agency, and with the advertiser. So mainly in the media, what we see, there are kind of like 2 types of the model that we've seen so far. The first one is about the subscription model, which is kind of like the pay model, like for example Netflix or any subscription newspaper that we have. The second one is kind of like the free copy, but they have the advertising on. So it's kind of like the advertising model. So with both of the model that we have, when we work across all of the media owner, media agency, as well as the advertiser, who is the one who pays the money, is that they actually would like to reach the audience, to reach the people of Thailand, to reach the target audience of their product. For example, one of the shampoo. They would like to reach people who is a female, age 15 plus, across all Thailand. Definitely, they have to find the people who are female, age 15 plus, across all Thailand. So that's the background of the advertising that we have seen across all media agency and down to media planner and advertiser. So starting with the audience. When we starting with the audience 10 years ago, so I think in Thailand and in the US, we see the same thing. Like in the traditional media, we have TV, we have radio, and we have print. So people actually consume media through the three mainstream of the media type, TV, radio, and print. So that's all the advertising going through there. But now it's kind of like a lot of device that you see. Everybody have the smartphone, everybody have the tablet, everybody have computer to access. Like in the US that we see, the time spent in 2002, like almost 10 years ago, the time spent of the US people is around like 50 hours per week for them to consume the media through the three main platforms. But now with the digital disruption, with the smartphone and everything, people were thinking that, okay, with the smartphone, with the internet coming in, digital coming in, the old traditional media will die. But the reality is that when we actually measure the time spent of the US audience that we see, in 2002, they spent 50 hours a week on the media. In 2016, the data that I have, they spent 80 hours a week. And the traditional media like TV and radio, they're declining, definitely they're declining. But still gain a high a long hour from the US audience. And there are a lot more of the device that people have like spending more time on the media. Thailand also see the same thing, but from what we see is that TV is still kind of like have the long hour of the Thai audience. Printing, I have to say, is declining. Radio, the traditional radio is declining. And there are new, kind of like new media type that coming in like digital, like out of home. What I would like to say here is that with the digital disruption coming in, with the technology, a lot of more device coming in, if we see it as an opportunity, as a brand owner, or as an advertiser, like in the US in 2002, you have around like 50 hours that you can earn from your audience, earn from your customer through three media type. But now you have like 80 hours a week that you can actually engaging with them. It means that there's 30 more hours that you can engage with them. But the media type are much different than before. The media have been much more fragmentation than before. So at the moment, there are more than 10 ways to actually reaching your audience. So if the advertiser, it's kind of like, we have to say that this is actually an opportunity because people actually spend more time in the media than before. But it has to be us as a media owner, as the planner, or as the one who work in the media industry, or the journalist or the news reporter, that which media type that we can reach the right people. So we as a Nielsen, we measure, we also follow the people as well, and we also follow where they go. And at the moment, what we see in terms of advertising spending, I say like out of 100%, 60% are still in TV. Print used to be 20% 10 years ago, but now I have to say it's quite declined quite a lot. Radio declined quite a lot, but what I see is that a lot of print, a lot of radio has transformed themselves to be the internet. Yeah, but the internet frontier, I can say now is much more difficult than radio and then the print in the past, because print in the past and our radio in the past is kind of like only local player, mainly local player. But now with the internet, it kind of like mainly Facebook, Google, a lot of international platform coming in that we have to compete with. So that's the new different competitive landscape that we have to think of. And when we follow the audience, especially in the readership perspective, there's many surprising stats that I see from the survey, from the measurement that we see. What we see in terms of readership is that when they read the paper in the past 10 years ago, now they probably changed to read through the online, through many platforms. The percent readership is actually increased, but it just really depends on which way that they read. Another surprising fact is that in the rural area of Thailand, that we think that they don't read. Actually, when we change the platform, because earlier 10 years ago, if it's a paper print, newspaper, or even magazine, people have to buy in order to read. But now it, like the online, is kind of like free for them to access. The surprising fact that I actually, when I look back at the stat, is that in the rural area at the moment, 10 years past, now the percent of the readership in the rural area is actually double than 10 years ago. This is quite interesting, because actually with the online, it kind of like increasing the readership, but you have to find the right format, right way to actually reaching them. Another thing, because we also measure the digital rating as well, that we actually collect the census in terms of the number of actual people that actually read the article, the actual people that see the digital video, and we can know whether how many people that actually seen this article, how many people watch the video, and who are they, whether they are female, male, which age they are. So, and in the past 3 years, we measure one of the newspaper in Thailand, Thai Rat, and we measure their online platform, thairat.co.th. That is very interesting that in the last quarter, the fourth quarter last year, we seen 30 million people access Thailand website, which is 30 million people, almost half of the Thai people already. Meaning the penetration or the reach is almost 50%. So that's huge, that's huge. So what I say is this is actually the opportunity with the digital disruption that we can measure now. And when we can measure, advertiser will come. Advertiser will know that, okay, there's a people in this platform. These people, which is whether it's the right target for them to reach or not. So for example, this is a platform and you have 10 million people. You have female 15 plus. So this is the right platform that your advertiser, your media planner will select and choose. And when it comes to the spending, advertiser, they normally looking for at the end, like whether they can sell the product or not. So in order to convert the people to actually buy the product, first of all, they have to reach them first. So they have to find which platform that have the most of their target audience. So when we actually measure the digital rating, we have two types of the digital rating. The first one we call digital content rating. So we measure the platform, whether the platform is actually have how many people and what profile of the people that stay in that platform. But the advertiser doesn't want just only that. Advertiser want to understand whether, for example, Unilever, where they actually put the banner in the website, that banner is actually reaching, for example, sunsilk buyer or not. And that sunsilk buyer probably they define as a 15 plus female. They would like to understand whether that banner reach people who are female 15 plus or not. So that's something that Nielsen now can measure the ad already as well. And many international advertisers as well as a local advertiser in Thailand are using what we call digital ad rating, that we measure how many people see their ad. And in how many people we can see the profile, we can deduplicate across the platform as well. For example, if they advertise through Thailand website, through Bangkok Post, through Facebook, through Line, for example, we can understand the total from the full platform, what are the total reach that we have deduplicate across the platform already. So this is something that advertisers want this number to prove that the money that they spend in the advertising that actually reaching their target audience. And not only just reach, now there have been a lot of talking about the viewability, whether the quality of the reach is good enough to convert those people to buy the product. So they are talking about the viewability of the ad as well, that we also measure as well. So this is something that have been developed along the year that we have seen in terms of the digital transformation, in terms of what advertiser is looking for, actually in terms of, they still follow, would like to get more customer, I can say want more people to buy their product. So where the customer go, they will go. And we as a media owner or the publisher, we have to find the right audience for them. We have to build the right audience for them. And we have to prove for them as well that we have the right audience to give to them. So that's the change that we have seen a lot in the past. Yeah.
Good, thank you very much. So let's move ahead now to Tiranai, who's actually been on the work face of an online newspaper for some time now, so he knows what's going on.
Right, so thanks for your introduction and for the very insightful information as well. So basically, I'm from Khao Sot, from Khao Sot English, which is in turn owned by Khao Sot, which is a very large newspaper, and we have a very large online following as well. Like we are pretty similar to Thai Rat in a way that we start as newspaper, but now we have transformed ourselves into what we call today the new media. I think we have 13 million followers on Facebook. We are at times one of the most clicked website in Thailand. We're kind of competing with Thai Rat some days. Thai Rat some days it's Khao Sot. So yeah. So I guess that I can give you, I think, a bit of a picture of what audience in the new media looks like in 2019, this past year, and what we can look forward to, trend in 2020 as well. Just to give you a very, very basic idea. So I have in my hand here the 10 top read stories on Khao Sot website of 2019. So, and from there, I think we can gauge, the interest and basically, what people look for nowadays. So of the top 10 stories that people read the most on Khao Sot in 2019, 2 were about celebrities. One was about when Bob Ponggoon, broke up his girlfriend, and another one was when I don't even remember who he is. San Prashakon, I don't even remember, like a drama. One was about crime. It was about Lalabelle, actually. Remember the PT who was drugged and presumably murdered. One was about horoscope. If there's any Virgo here in this room, well, you're in tough luck for 2020. One was about a lesbian woman giving birth on the street of Bangkok, something like that. 4 were about the monarchy. And actually, the most top read story ever on Khao Sot website of 2019 was about a royal family member, or actually she used to be a royal family member. It was about no, it was. I'm just quoting a data here. No, it's just. I think it gives you a picture of what people read or what people are interested in. In 2019, and but beyond the numbers, if I were to present to you, the trends that I think defined the year 2019 for new media, I would say one is the return of politics. Two is a symbiosis between media and social media, and three is videos. So let's start with the return of politics. As we all know, right, 2019 was the year that we had an election or something that looked a bit like it. So now we are back in what we call, the conventional politics. So of all the stories or the engagement on our news site, the most popular stories for 2019 were mostly about politics. Back when the parties were being formed, Palang Pracharat was being formed, whether Prayut would run or not, dissolution of Thai Raksa Chat party, the election day itself, the chaos that followed, and how Prayut was voted into the prime minister again, and all the scandals and performance of the government. So politics finally returned in the way that we sort of recognized after 5 years of the military rule. And you can see that people are very interested. People are actually seeking out information and news about what's going on, in parliament, in the government house. And with this return of politics also comes the dissolution of the junta itself, right? The NCPO is no more, at least in the name. And at least for the media, at least I think that's a very good news. It's very good news because now we're not subject to this kind of a censorship or kind of harsh measures by the NCPO anymore. Now editors and news chiefs can work in peace without having to worry that one day they might have to be invited to a lunch talk, which happened before, let me tell you. Or even worse, attitude adjustment. If you know my colleague Kun Pravit, he was a guest of that kind of practice as well. So all this happened because the generals themselves, the people who were in charge of the junta, they're now politicians themselves. So, they have to rely on the public support. They have to think about their image. They can't just rely on harsh measures of, shutting the media down or that kind of thing anymore. So that's good news. But that's not to say we are free of censorship. 2019, on the other hand, is marked by what I call, a very, very. It's been very tough year to speak about the unspeakable, let's say that. I've been working in the media for 8 years now. I started in 2012, so I can see of this transition a bit. And I can't go into detail, but let's say that what couldn't be spoken is now even harder to speak about. That's the trend of 2019 have seen. We have seen new forms of making sure that the unspeakable remains unspeakable. Recently, there was this one article on this certain online news media that was removed without explanation. I think that is some kind of a proof as well that, something is really going on, that, it's not all rosy here in 2019 or even 2020. This is a new norm that people have to live in. And the second thing I was mentioning earlier is a symbiosis between the social media and media. Khao Sot, we are often criticized for kind of like being a season, or like kind of only caring about what social media says and, not real issues, whatever. But I think that's outdated. That criticism is outdated. Nowadays, I think we can see a reconciliation between the so-called old media or the mainstream media and social media. Basically, what you see in 2019 was social media would start something, or they were outraged by something, or they would point their attention to something. But then we, the so-called traditional media, we would kind of take a look at it, we pick up the issue, and then we take it forward. We put the microphone in front of people in charge, what happened. We kind of like try to find out what exactly was going on. Just very quick example, top of my head. Remember in November, in the Lokatong period, we have this case of a girl who was harassed, for making katong, in the pictures, in the image of a cartoon. Now, it was social media who started it, but it was the media who goes to the police. We talk to experts, we talk to the ministers, trying to move the story forward. And I think we see this kind of, like I said, a symbiosis more and more. People in the past, social media and the media were seen as some kind of competitor. But now I think they kind of rely on each other now. The social media need the media, to get justice, to talk to people in charge. And we need social media to tell us what's going on as well. And which led me to the last trend that we saw in 2019 was videos. That's a kind of very common expression in Thailand that Thai people read less than 8 sentences a day or something like that. Well, I don't know if that's true, but what I can tell you is the viewership of videos grew exponentially. It grew a lot in 2019. Actually, and Khao Sot was even featured by Facebook, thankfully, for being a role model of this kind of commercially successful video platforms. So, just to give you an idea, we have, that's a lot of numbers. So basically, more than 600 videos that we did, 619 videos actually, we had more than 1 million views. And you can calculate how much we make, from the ad breaks that we put in each video. And with this trend of videos, I think we can safely assume that it's going to play an important role in 2020 as well. People are going to read less and they're going to watch more. I mean, that's just reality, or that's the new norm, how it works. But that's not to say you can just make as many videos as you can. Many of our competitors actually have more videos than we do at Khao Sot, but we somehow manage to get more viewership. But I think if you were to ask me why, I would say it's probably of the style of Khao Sot. If the Thai, people in the Thai audience would recognize instantly what Khao Sot looks like, like tung, balung, it's very kind of like very sensational, very kind of like dramatic way of telling stories. We apply that from the newspaper and from the website to the videos as well. I think that's probably why we were so successful, on the videos. So it's not only about bombarding your readers with videos. It's about finding the identity or something that makes it unique. And if you ever go to Khao Sot, Facebook, you make sure you put kind of the volume down because it sounds like the action movies, when you watch the video. But that's what the readers apparently like. And I think that's going to be the way we do things in 2020. So I'm going to just stop here and, let's move on to more interesting speakers, to the next victims in line. There you go.
All right, Cod. So, Thai Inquirer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Straight into it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, for your excellent insight. Allow me to step back from the nitty-gritty a bit and be a bit more nebulous, because day-to-day is really not my strong suit. Let me be a bit more nebulous and a bit more big picture about why we're doing this and what we're trying to accomplish at the Thai Inquirer. First of all, I have to say that I'm honored here to be sitting next to my distinguished panelists. Despite the fact that we're ostensibly competitors, I think the fact that we're all here and that we all have these ventures makes Thailand a stronger country for it. The fact that we have media that's willing to be inquisitive, that's willing to investigate and willing to hold power accountable only makes this country a better place. It's a shame that the traditional papers of record have fallen into disrepute, have fallen to the wayside, and that is why we're here, I feel. And that's why we need to step up our game. So I sit before you today not as the editor of a news website, not as a journalist who's covered this region, but like many of you who are here, a concerned Thai citizen. Like you, I'm concerned at the direction that this country's taken. not only in its march towards totalitarianism, but at the increasing polarization in our society. It's not unique to Thailand. You only have to look at the States to see how polarized that society has become. But it is something that is also happening here and happening every day. Every day we see the Thai society increasingly at odds with itself. The very fabric of who we are as Thais is being torn apart, not from without, but from within. We no longer talk or engage in dialogue, but succumb to proselytizing and belligerence on social media. William Butler Yeats, who's a hero of mine and a poet, an Irish one, said at the turn of the 1920s towards the 1930s, when he saw the onset of fascism and onset of all the things that eventually led to the Second World War, that the best seem to lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. I think that's very true of our country here today. So why am I telling you all this? Why should I care? Why should you care? Well, first of all, I don't think it's too late to rectify the course with which we've taken. And part of that is having a free and fair media that is inquisitive in nature. Though I am speaking at the Foreign Correspondents Club, though I have been a foreign correspondent, Reuters hires and DPA hires people that are foreign to cover Thailand even though they're Thai. I have as of right now, relinquished my title as a foreign correspondent. I'm a Thai journalist, working for a Thai publication, hopefully for the betterment of Thailand. Though my colleagues seated at the table may disagree on how we get there, I think all of us want to get to the same place, and that is a freer, fairer, more open Thailand. And that's what we aim to do. Now, what do we want to do at Thai Inquirer? I believe that we will do things differently than traditional journalists and journalism, or how the West, forgive me, all my Western colleagues, have defined journalism. At the Thai Inquirer, we will value dialogue, dissenting voices, as well as the voices that they dissent against. We will seek to be unbiased and fair, but also scrutinizing and inquisitive. That means sometimes we will give a platform to the people we do not agree with. That is the start of dialogue. But it also means we get to understand their point of view, which is paramount to understanding a complete picture of everything. It's the start of dialogue, it's the start of conversation, and it's the start of reconciliation. Remember that when Darth Vader goes to sleep, he doesn't think he's a bad guy, but rather what he's doing is necessary to bring about a freer and fairer empire. We want to understand not just the Lukes and Leias of the world, but the Vaders and the Jabba the Hutts as well. We will also challenge norms where we believe the norms to be unfair. But, and crucially but, we will also highlight the positives and what we admire about this country because we think there are many. Am I under the illusion that any of this will be easy? No. It is going to be difficult, first and foremost, because we're going to be writing in English, which already excludes, as she mentioned, it eliminates the majority of my countrymen from the content that we will put out. However, we do feel that by writing in English, we're able to select our audience, in a sense. There is a select group of privileged Thais who speak and read in English. This group considers itself rightfully or wrongly, as itself to be part of the ruling class. The larger Thai community that reads English is also the same community that happens to have the decision-making privileges in this country. While we did not choose how this came about, we do hope to harness it, speak to it, and eventually influence it. And while the road is undoubtedly going to be difficult, I do feel that I have surrounded myself, not just at the Thai Inquirer, with an amazing team full of awesome writers who I'm so excited to work with, but also by excellent competitors who are only going to push us forward every day. People have asked me, Vorna and I have a mutual friend, and she asked me, are you guys fighting? Why don't you guys work together? I wish we were working together. But the ultimate goal is I've known Vorna for a decade. I love this guy. And he's going to do an amazing job with Disruptive. Like, incredible. I hope I'm not putting you under pressure there. But he's going to do an amazing job at Disruptive, and I can't wait to see what it is. And I think, and I mean this genuinely, that we're better for it, that we both exist. Okay? And also, I want to thank everyone who's here. Ever since we announced that we're going to launch, I have received so many messages of support from the community, from whether it's old colleagues or whether it's members of the diplomatic corps, whether it's just friends or people who are concerned about where this country is going. The fact that they've reached out to me and said, hey, you know what? We support you. We want you to do well. That means the world to both myself and the staff that I'm happy to lead. I'd like to end by just deliberately misquoting another hero of mine, Justice Robert Jackson, who spoke at the beginning of the Nuremberg trial, but I'm going to completely change what he said. But he said, the wrongs from the suppression of free speech, the rewriting of history, and the destruction of democracy in recent Thai history has been so calculated, so malignant, and so devastating, and so planned that our country can no longer tolerate it being ignored because it can no longer survive it being repeated. I hope all of you here tonight continue to encourage and support us going forward, and encourage and support my colleagues, because we're all going to need it. Thanks.
So finally, Kunvar and I, who will be launching Disrupt in March.
I can sum up why we all should be moving online by just one example. When Con mentioned the word nebulous, I turned to Tony and I asked him, what does nebulous mean? And he went, I don't know, man. And then I Googled nebulous, something vague, cloudy, and hazy. So with my platform, don't expect our vocabulary to be very expansive. I've been on many panels and given many speeches throughout my career, and for those of you who have heard me spoken before, you know that I sometimes cuss and curse and can be quite offensive, so that's a disclaimer. I apologize beforehand if I offend anyone, but that's what I do. I offend people. That's how I make my name. See, the problem with the media nowadays is that for the past year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I love watching Voice TV. Voice TV gives great analysis, criticism, and investigation of the Prayut Chan-o-cha government. The last one and this one, and let's face it, they're all the same. But then, after that great criticism of the Prayut Chan-o-cha government, they would turn around and give great, big, expansive adulation for Thaksin Shinawatra and Pheu Thai Party. When Yingluck was government, I used to love to watch Nation TV because they give such great analysis and criticism of the Shinawatra government. But these days, when I turn on Nation TV, well, I might as well listen to Prayut Chan-o-cha. It's the same thing. And this day, when I opened up the Bangkok Post, a single teardrop ran down my cheek. Not that there's anything wrong with the Bangkok Post. It doesn't take side, but I worked there. Hold on, man. But I used to work there. I was born there. I made my name there. I drew my first breath there. And what it is today, it could be so much more. And like God said, the media nowadays, not just in Thailand, but everywhere, there is a big problem. And that big problem is a lot of media have their own agenda. Fox, CBS, NBC, BBC, whoever, every country you go to, there's one media on one side, another media on the other side. When the job of the media is to be on nobody's side, you got to be an asshole to everybody. That's what I am. That's how I began my writing career at the Bangkok Post. That's why I have no friends. You want to be a check and balance, you check and balance everybody, all those in power. One of my proudest moments during the Bangkok Post was after 1 week, one Sunday column, I get called an ultra-royalist, yellow shirt elitist pig. The next week, after another article, I get called a red shirt Thaksin slave got bought out. I'm a sold out. So those 2 weeks combined tell me that, hey, you're doing a good job. You have no friends, but you're doing a good job. Over there, Dominic was asking me if I ever had anybody from the government calling me. I said, no, they don't call me. They call the editor's office. And I'm also proud to say that every single government called the office because of me. So today, we live in a world where the media is quite polarized in terms of they take side. Thai media is where I get most of my information because they are fast. Morning, noon, and night, 20, 30, 40, 50 news a day. but most of them are fragmented. They don't have any context. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just about getting out there as fast as possible, the headline as sensational possible, and then bam, as many click as possible, as many share as possible, as many comments as possible, and that's just it. That's all it is. And in English language, there's nothing much going on. They are the old ones. Khao Sot is doing a great job, but hey, there's 4 of them in the newsroom. 4 people. There are other platforms out there, smaller ones. And Cord will do a great job with Thailand Inquirer, but still small. And what I will do will still be small. What does that mean? There's a gap, there's a vacuum. There needs to be something out there that I feel personally is important in order to make sense of things. Why are we here? What happened to us? Where are we going? And why are they doing this to us? And do so in a way that you don't take side, that you don't have agenda, that it doesn't matter if you're print or you're online or your videos or your articles, you do it because it's your job to check and to balance and to be honest and to be truthful and to be straightforward and to tell it like it is, except for that one thing. See, I'm honest. Knowledge is information. Information is power. Prayut has 3 submarines at least. Thaksin has billions. Thanathorn has billions. What do each Thai person have? Not that much, except for knowledge and information. But what if information is distorted? What if information is created to mislead, to misguide? What if information is produced in order to incur anger, hatred, and division? Well, you get what we have today in Thailand, a society divided. You get what you have in America, a society divided, at odds with each other, at each other's throat, because the media is not acting as the media is acting as somebody with an agenda. So I hope, in all my humility, with the launch of my platform, that we can give something different. We can make sense, rhymes and reason to the conversation, whether in articles, whether in videos. We hope to provoke, we hope to make impact, we hope to offend some people a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of you will be writing me very nasty letters. I welcome them all. But at the very least, we all sitting up here, our job is to generate conversation, to get the content and the information out there. Some may like it, some may don't, but that's what we do. And that's what Thailand needs, and that's what the world needs. And I am egotistical and vain enough to think that I might be just one person, including my team at that table, to help doing that. And I will end it at that note. Thank you.
Right, there's a microphone there for people who want to ask questions. Before we get to that, I would just like to ask one question. Ranjita spoke to us about the metrics and seeing where ad spend would go and what it produced, and this is all very interesting. However, advertising is an important part of the revenues of any publication. So Khao Sot does not have a paywall, and I think operates on a fairly traditional advertising basis. Cod, Lorinai, will you have a paywall? And who are your backers? Who are providing the capital, your seed capital?
We'll have a paywall. It is the hope and dreams of every platform to eventually have a paywall, but you can't do that yet when no one knows who you are. As to the question, who are my backer? I am my backer. This platform will be as independent as I am independent. I'm bankrolling this myself.
So you're fairly wealthy.
เรื่องเงินไม่ใช่ปัญหาเรื่องเงินไม่ใช่ปัญหาครับ ธนาธร
As long as I'm editor-in-chief of Thai Inquirer, we will not have a paywall. My message here, as I said in my statement, was we aim to be as egalitarian as possible. We want this to be viewed by everyone. We view ourselves as a public service. And in terms of revenue and things like that, we understand no paywall means less revenue, but hopefully I go with the field of dreams thing here. If I write it, they will come come, and hopefully we'll get hopefully we'll get some revenues from advertising. In terms of our backers, we have investors. I don't believe they prefer who say they are. I guarantee you none are political. None are in political parties. We are bankrolled by businesses and investors.
And are they going into it to make money or because they're idealistic?
They are going into it. I think anyone who is a successful businessman knows that it's not the best investment to invest in media. So I don't think they're in it to make too much money.
Can I have this question?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, may I ask just one question to my fellow panelists? I mean, all happy.
Please ask.
Yeah. So, since Kun Warnai mentioned it a bit in his speech, but actually it intrigued my curiosity. I've been curious about this some time now.
Sure.
I mean, you know, khao sot. I mean, khao sot and khao sot English. We are sort of like traditional media, so we are placed under this very, very harsh restriction. You know, when it comes to the monarchy, we can only say what they told us to say. We can't say anything else. But I'm curious, you know, when it comes to new media.
Is English actually under those same restrictions, or do they have more leeway than the Thai section?
Yeah, I mean,
I was led to believe that you weren't.
Well, I mean, but let me finish my question first. You know?
Sure.
The thing is, but I've seen smaller independent media like Pasha Thai. You know, they can report anything they like. You know, monarchy-wise, without getting in trouble.
I don't think they can report anything they like.
Okay, I mean, so just wondering if you know, my question would be basically, you know, as you know, small independent media, are you going to be subject to the same kind of like restriction as we, you know, traditional media?
I don't know what restrictions I am subjected to. I intend to abide by the laws of the Thai government and Thailand. That doesn't mean that you can't report on stories when they come up, and it doesn't mean that you can't be fearless.
Okay, all right, just curious. Anyway, Kun Warnai, you already mentioned you're not gonna touch that one thing, right?
I don't know what restrictions we will face, but as I mentioned earlier, if I don't get a call or two, then I'm not doing my job.
Okay, all right.
That's just the way it is.
Okay, thank you so much.
Right, as I said, there's a microphone for people who want to ask questions. Kun Ranchita, I want to go back to this very interesting thing that you were talking about, metrics and being able to measure very, very precisely what's being read, for how long. This is a whole new world. We never had this in print media. And of course, as you well know, there was no auditing of publications in Thailand previously. How does that help the business, and how do the people who present the metrics stay neutral? Is this something that you've assumed, or do you think it's something that should be done by a separate body?
So we as a Nielsen, we actually position ourselves as an independent party.
Right.
We don't own the media. We don't be part of the media agency. We don't be part of any advertiser. So we position ourselves as an independent measurement, we can say. And the way we measured is we're using a research technique. So if the traditional media, you probably will know, in the traditional media we use, for example, in TV we have the sample of the panel that we install the people meter that monitor them every day, what they watch and what channel, how long, and who watching the program. In the print traditional media, the way that we measure the number of the people who read is purely the traditional survey as well as the face-to-face. But now when it comes to the digital media, like the online, through website, desktop, through mobile, through the big platform like Facebook, YouTube, or even another platform, we have our own methodology to measure, and it's different from the traditional survey that it has to be from the sample base, because in the old traditional way we cannot interview 67 million people in Thailand within 1 year. Definitely we can't. We can't just go out to and interview every single of you. We have to use the data science technique to sampling and weighing everything. So that's a traditional, when we go back to learn the stat when we have the bachelor degree. That's a technique that we use. But in the digital media, it's different because the technologies actually allow us to collect every single device, collect every single computer that we access. So, for example, that I mentioned earlier that we measure the Thailand page. The way we measure is that we put what we call the SDK, the software development kit. I'll go a little bit of technology in here so that you can understand that we actually measure everyone. So, for example, in the page that our client that we measure, so we put a software development kit, it's like a tag on the page. And every time, every single people open that page, our cookie will collect that this advertising ID from this device already opened this page. You already open, another computer already open. So we collect all the cookie and all the advertising ID from computer and smartphone when the page is open. So we know all of this one. So we know the number of views that every single page that's already count. And then when we know the view actually can mean 100 million view, 500 million view, but advertiser would like to know in that view how many people. Because probably one people probably open that page 10 times. And you just reach the same old people. You don't reach a new customer. So we partner with the big data provider. At the moment we partner with Facebook in terms of the profile. So Facebook, when we install the Facebook in our smartphone, when we open the Facebook in the desktop or in the computer, Facebook use the same technique of the cookie, that they collect the device cookie as well, device ID. And then when we collect, so the first thing we collect from our own Nielsen tag. So we know how many devices in Thailand already opened that page. Facebook also know that which device belong to which Facebook user. So they know the people. So if I open, for example, khao sot, if we measure, we open your khao sot in mobile. And at the time, I saw like this article. I go back home and I open my computer. I open the same page. So in the view, it will count 2 views because it's a 2 times, but it's the same person. So we actually match the panel that we have with the Facebook panel. So we actually know how many cookies that we have, transfer to how many people, and transfer to how, whether it's female, male, or what age are they. But the way that we work with Facebook is very strict in terms of the privacy, because we both have to protect the privacy of our client. For example, if khao sot is my client, so I have to protect khao sot, that I will not tell Facebook that I measure you, so I protect you. And at the same time, Facebook have to protect the user privacy as well. So Facebook cannot tell Nielsen that this is me, Ranchita, that's watching khao sot. So the way we work is kind of like the double blind. Yeah, double blind between Facebook and Nielsen, that, okay, we just match the cookie. Facebook just send us only the group of the people. For example, with this cookie with this ID number of the page of the khao sot. So we don't tell Facebook that this is khao sot that open on Monday, things like that. It's the code 001. And Facebook will send us back that this is code 001, have 10 million people who are male 50%, female 50%, age, blah, 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 blah. So we get the bracket. So that's why we can measure the quantity of the people who watch.
Okay. And just for clarity, your revenue source is advertisers, people. That's who pays detail.
The one who pay for us is media agency.
Yeah.
And mainly they're working through the advertiser because they would like to prove that
Effectiveness, yeah.
the effectiveness of the, because they spend a lot in their advertising, and they would like to understand how many people they reach. Yeah.
Okay, question please.
I hope this is working. Sarah from Berda Luxury. My question is around monetization efforts. Given that you're digital first, what kind of advice would you give? All you guys are digital first, I'm guessing. What kind of advice would you give to diversify revenue besides from banner advertising and also paywall? To all, so.
You work with Berta.
Yes.
So Prestige and Lifestyle Asia.
Yes, correct.
Aren't you already monetized through advertorials?
Yes, that is correct. But I wanted to ask you what you guys were
well,
doing.
Well, then, to steal from your business model, advertorials,
yeah.
Paid trips, all the luxuries of lifestyle journalism.
Podcasts, anything around
podcast,
that area?
Sure, but we haven't been able to monetize it so far. Hopefully
Okay.
in the future, but for now, no.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Michael Mackey, freelance. Just a quick question for Kun Varanai. You didn't say, I mean, I might have missed it. Are you actually going to be in Thai language or in English?
I apologize. It will be in English.
Right, and a question for both you and Kun Kod. You both seem intent on restarting a national dialogue, which certain very powerful players, usually with guns, have said Thailand can have on their terms, and they will make sure it is within their terms. And now, but you're having a national dialogue within English, which a majority of the Thai people don't speak with the fluency that we are showing here tonight. And is this a way to get round censorship? But isn't it also profoundly undemocratic that you will sponsor a dialogue for people in Thailand in a language which they don't speak?
I have an easy answer to that. Yes. I can't even type in Thai. I can't even type in Thai. I can read, I can write Thai. I can't type Thai. Thai is not my strong language, even though English, as you may recognize when you listen, my English is not that great either. I blame that on the Texas public school system. That's where I grew up. And it's a very fair question. If I'm able to do this in Thai with confidence of what I'm able to write and speak in Thai, I would do it in Thai. I simply do not have the skill set to do it in Thai. English is simply the language that I was educated in, the language that I have used almost my entire career. One job I did that was in Thai was as editor-in-chief of GQ magazine. And let me tell you something, the inability to truly understand the language made me suck at that job. So I just can't do it well. Also, you'd be surprised how much more widespread English is. I'll give an example. It might not be the greatest example. It's just a personal example. I do what I do in my Facebook, in my Twitter almost every day. And sometimes my post, my quotes, my whatever get over thousands, 2,000 likes and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shares. But most of the people that are engaging with my post are not foreigners, are not expats. They are Thais. They are young Thais, 80-90% of them. As Kos said earlier, urban professionals. Their grasp of English is fine. It's not great, it's fine. So we're going for that target group. And who knows if we're successful with that 3, 4, 5 years. If I can actually make money from this thing, I won't have to sell my car to finance this thing. Then we might look to expand and have more Thai stuff. But right now, it's not gonna make everyone happy. The answer is really simple. I'm not doing Thai because I simply cannot do it in Thai. That's all.
I think there's an arrogance to assume that the majority of Thais cannot understand English. And I don't want to make that arrogant assumption. Are there certain Thais that are better and more adept at understanding English than others? Sure, that is the privilege of education. But are we to say that those disprivileged cannot improve their English and learn to read and write? I would never make that assumption. I think Thais are becoming more English proficient every day. I think a lot of Thais aspire to have better English language skills. That's why you see things like Wall Street becoming so successful, Wall Street English. So I'm not arrogant enough to say that I'm writing for a select group of Thais. I understand some Thais understand it better than others. I understand that these Thais think themselves to be the privileged ruling class, and we aim to try to influence them. But honestly, our writing is free, it's open, it's for everyone. If you want to come in and learn the language and use it as a platform to even learn English, go for it, good on you. The more the better.
Question.
Hi, Chon Thanat journalist. I have a question for Kun Ruan Chita. All the stats that you gave at the beginning, was that monitors on both Thai and English languages online media, or do you have any ways that we could separate Thai stats and English stats away from each other so we can have a clear image of English media, how well the English media is doing these days?
In terms of the technique to measure, definitely we can. And the way we measure, as I mentioned, in the traditional media, we use a face-to-face. So basically, we can do the question to ask whether they read the Thai newspaper or whether they read the English newspaper. That's the way we measure. In the digital media as well, when we differentiate between page, we can identify that this is the English page that we measure, and this is a Thai page that we measure. So that's a way we can measure. But for the digital media, this is something that we need to work with the website owner in order to put the tag in. So this is something that we can do, yes.
Are you waiting?
Hi, we spoke about the importance of the press.
Sorry, just who are you, quickly?
I'm Didi. My name's Didi. I run a communications agency. I'm not a journalist, but actually my question is for all of you. We spoke about the importance of remaining neutral, somewhat becoming a press or a journalist because you are essentially thought leaders. My question is how important is funding to a publication, to the content direction, and when do you define propaganda and news reporting, especially when there's outside influence or I may dare say infiltration. So I guess Kunra and I answered this question tonight that you are self-funded. So I would be interested to hear about the rest of you and the funding backgrounds.
Newcomer.
Especially we spoke a lot about polarization fueled by the press. So
Yeah,
especially you look at America, when you look at news stations being responsible for some thought-leading schemes. So taking that and implying it to our society, how much does funding really, really mean, and how does that influence your news agency per se?
Right. So, I mean, if I may, I'm going to go first since I work for the traditional media. You can say that. So, Khao Sot and Khao Sot English are funded, of course, by a lot of people. By businesses, by major, firms. I mean, you can guess who they are. CP, those kind of things. This kind of thing is normal. I mean, they're funded everyone. But honestly, speaking as someone who worked for Khao Sot, I mean, I acknowledge that Khao Sot, we're talking about the Khao Sot Thai, right? Khao Sot was probably responsible, I mean, partly for this kind of like divisive reporting or whatever. Any well-informed readers recognize Khao Sot as some kind of what you call red-leaning or anti-Prayut side. But I don't think this had anything to do with the funding actually, because we're not being paid to do this. It's more of a kind of ideological or sort of like it depends on the people in charge, what they believe in, whatever. We're not being paid, to attack Prayut or anything. It's the people who work in Khao Sot or make decisions. They genuinely believe that doing this is in interest of the public. But we do have a red line, though. We have a red line that, we can be as partisan or we can be as sort of polarizing or taking side as much as we can where we want, but we will not report things that are not real. I think that's the bottom line. And if other media, for the other side of the aisle do this more often, we appreciate it. But Khao Sot English in my opinion, I think we do a pretty good job of trying to be impartial and trying to remain with neutrality. And it's actually fortunate that none of the people who funded us or none of our sponsors, are demanding to change the way that we report things so far. I think that's very fortunate. Yeah, we have.
So the recent acquisition does not have any impact on Khao Sot English, you would say?
Yeah, I'm sorry again?
There's the recent funding by Xinhua.
Oh,
that has nothing to do with Khao Sot English? I'm just curious.
I mean, Xinhua is not funding us. We're not getting paid by them, unfortunately. I mean, I wish we are, but we're not getting anything from Xinhua. Xinhua, I mean, let's not do, I mean, I don't want to derail this topic, but since it's a question. I mean, we are not being paid by Xinhua. This is actually a news sharing agreement. We also have something similar with Gyeodo from Japan as well. So, and Gyeodo never told us what to report. Xinhua never told us what to report. Associated Press never told us what to report. And I wish we are being paid by Chinese money or Japanese money or whatever. I mean, I wish, but we're not.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you for the question. God.
Do you want me to answer too? Or are we good?
I would love to hear. Yeah.
We are backed by investors from several groups. Some are families who own businesses, etc. I'm not at liberty to discuss who they are, but they have guaranteed the newsroom's independence from influence. And I promise you right now that the moment that they influence or even try to assert themselves in the newsroom is when I resign from my position and submit my CV to Warne. Then I will be unemployed.
If I may just add to that, as someone who has worked in the newsroom for over a decade, it's always an ongoing eternal struggle between the editorial office and management. Articles get yanked, people argue, people get fired, and that's just the way it is between those who control the money and those who produce the news. It's an eternal struggle, never black and white. A politician, I will not name name, recently, last month, said to me, the easiest way to solve the problem, and this politician, of course, is behind the scene controlling a media giant. The easiest way to solve the problem is just to hire journalists who agrees with your politics. And that's why when you consume certain news media platform, TV channel, online news or whatever, you see news that are slanted entirely one way. It's not because they are interfered by the money people. It's simply because the reporters agree with the politics of those people. So sometimes it's not the money that's the problem. It's the journalists who are the problem.
Just before that, you're shielded from management, Tiranai, because you're just on the journalistic side. Varanai, you're running a very small operation, so you're probably going to have to deal with business. Who manages your website? Are you dealing with the investors, or have you got a management team?
Okay, can you split that question up? Who's running our website?
No. Who's managing the business? Because in Tiranai's case,
right, we have a business team that does the business side of things, but
so
they are not involved in editorial.
Exactly. So you don't actually have to deal.
No, I'm not going to advertisers.
You don't talk to the advertisers or the investors.
And if the advertisers tell me that I have to run news a certain way, I'll tell them to bugger off. But
right. Okay, fair enough. Question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Peter Fishback. I run an IT outsourcing business here in Thailand. My question is about the recently established anti-fake news center, which Thailand has set up, as has Singapore also recently. How do you feel about that, and do you think that it will be effective in combating fake news? And do you think it's sort of the right approach, both in terms of, in general and also specifically the way it's being implemented here in Thailand or in other countries?
Who would like to take that?
Oh, it's got to be me, isn't it?
Go for it.
Well, my personal opinion is the anti-fake news center is set up by those people who produce the most fake news. It's just a way to censor and to scare and to intimidate people. And actually, the Minister of Digital Economy, and he actually is related to one of my close friends, so I have a lot of inside stories. But basically, it's just pretty much a tool to scare, intimidate, and perhaps silence opposition. Nothing to do with fake news. And it's effective.
You good?
I'm good.
Allow me to perhaps say a contrarian stance for a second. In the West, fake news is a problem. It's disinformation campaigns run by foreign governments or opposing political parties has become problematic, has influenced the national discourse. In the East, in Asia, fake news is also a problem, very much for the same reasons. But we should never attempt to legislate fake news the way that European countries and the United States and countries that have introduced legislation to combat fake news. We should never do that. We should never fall down that slippery slope, because when you do, whichever government in power will use that legislation to control the narrative to their liking. So is fake news bad? Yes. But unlike in the West, I think fake news you have to make do with, accept that it's a part of everyday life here, and live with it instead of trying to legislate it away. And I will never be in support of legislation against fake news for that reason, because power is so prone to being abused here in this region of the world.
How would you suggest, if that doesn't work, which I'm not saying I disagree with you, that legislation may not be the way to go, how do you combat fake news and the divisiveness?
There are organizations out there, my friend Aiden White from Brussels, runs independent media verification centers. Obviously, social media giants are introducing their own steps to combat it. Whether it's effective remains to be seen. But there are organizations out there. I don't know if we have any AFP people in the crowd tonight, but AFP has an amazing fake news fighting center that I wish were given more resources, because they do this stuff where they check viral news on the day and release articles that combat that news. And if I had more resources, I'd devote a section of my newsroom to it. I don't. But these kind of organizations is what is necessary to fight fake news, not government legislation, not fake news centers, not legal precedents that will be abused eventually.
Ranchita, what's the Nielsen policy on fake news sites? I mean, some of them get lots of hits.
So it's not actually the fake news that we have a lot of issue about the client. The way that we face a lot of issue is about, in the digital media, they have a lot of what we call fake view, like the robot that actually view and have a lot of number of view in the page. Yeah, that's a bot view that we see a lot in the digital media, that Nielsen have been asked a lot from the advertiser to actually cut this out from the way we measure. And at the moment, in the measurement that we measure in the digital ad rating or digital content rating, we already cut this out as well from the view that we report, from the actual people that we report. So this is an issue that client advertiser are concerned quite a lot in terms of when it comes to the digital media.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Yeah, Brian Mertens, freelance. I'd like to address this primarily to Mr. Voronoi, but maybe Mr. Kot and Mr. Tony would have something to say as well. Looking back at the establishment of Guru, which I watched closely as a great lover of newspapers above all and magazines, it seemed maybe in the first year or so it took some time to find its feet, but once it got going, one thing I had always wanted to write about was what an excellent publication it really was. It really seemed to find its audience, its style, fit the times, and three observations come from that, and this is leading to a question. One is that it seemed to speak to and also from the point of view of this very unique audience of kind of smart Sukhumvit kids who attended international schools or studied abroad and had a very savvy outlook on what's going on in Thailand. The magazine was primarily about leisure and entertainment and nightlife, but it also had a bit of politics and society in it. And second, it was during a period when media around, at least in the English-speaking world, to some extent gravitated towards parody and satire as maybe the most revealing way of looking at what was going wrong in society, because the mainstream media were failing in a critical role. And third, for foreigners, for expatriates, it was a way of looking at Thailand through the eyes of these sort of internationalized, savvy young Thais. The question then is, are you going to try to recreate some of that phenomenon in your new, you haven't talked much about contents, in your new publication, and can it actually be done online? In this much more disrupted environment where people look around very quickly, they read headlines, they don't give it the attention that we all gave to, reading the Post on Sundays, going through Guru and enjoying what was there.
Well, thank you for talking about Guru. That I really appreciate that. That was my second magazine as editor-in-chief, and the current editor-in-chief is sitting right there, actually. I thank you. I think the success of Guru was that we were able to capture a voice of a generation and deliver something different, and philosophically, in theory, I hope to do the same thing with Disrupt, to be a voice of the new generation, because even people my age, 40-something, we have nothing to read in English. We have nothing to consume in English. Back at the Bangkok Post, when I was younger, we used to discuss how the Bangkok Post readers are 40 years old and up. But today, the reality is, people my age are not reading the Bangkok Post or The Nation. There is nothing out there in English that is relevant to us, except for ad. I'm being very nice. So, that tells me that there is a vacuum, a market for something in English, not just for foreigners and expats, but for Thais to consume, and not just for people my age, but the younger audience. Generation C, millennials. I'll give you another example because I'm a man of examples. A couple of months ago, I was at this club called Octo on Sukhumvit 24. It was around Octo. Don't worry about it. It's not even legal, but anyway. It was around midnight. I was standing there. My group of friends were standing there. I'm in my usual pose, my arm folded right here. I got my glasses right here. I'm just looking, observing, taking the crowd, not doing anything bad, just observing. My head bobbing to the music. The next table was a group of young kids, and I mean young. 21, 22, 23, maybe, that young. Half boys, half girls. They started to look at me, they look at me, they look at me, and I look back at them, and I look back, and we're just staring each other down. And then one boy walked up to me, and the thing that I thought to myself at first was that, why couldn't it have been the girl? But never mind, the boy walked up to me. He looked at me, and he said, "Are you Voronai?" But he said it in an obvious Thai accent. And he started to try to speak to me in English, but it was obvious that his English was not very good. So I just told him, let's speak in Thai. I'm Thai. So we started speaking. And what he told me was that, Kun Voronai, I follow you on Facebook. I love your posts on politics. It's just one small example that is a lot about me, but I'm egotistical like that. But it's an example that tells me that there are young Thais out there. Doesn't have to be international kids. Don't have to be studying in the West. They grew up here, they study here, but we live in a world of digital. Young Thais understand English more than we give them credit for. They read, they listen, they consume. And like I said earlier, whenever I get thousands of likes and hundreds of shares, most of them are by regular young Thais who always grew up here. But they would love to. They want to so much to consume something in English because they want to expand their horizon. They want to learn new things. So in that sense, this is the reason why I want to do this and the reason why I believe it will be successful because I know there's a market for it. I just have to be able to make money from it and we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
So what you're saying then is that with Guru, what had been a sort of elite and somewhat narrow constituency is now, because of the change in demographics and education and so on, is a broader constituency that can respond to the same kind of
If I remember correctly, I started Guru around 2005, 2006. 15 years goes by fast, and the world changed a lot. Bangkok back then and today changed a lot. If I may give another example. 2005 and 2006, the biggest clubbing scene back then was Taurus. And when you go to Taurus, you walk into Taurus, all the boys look the same with the same haircut, with the same fashion sense. And all the girls look the same, all very conservative. The most revealing things about Thai girls in the pub scene back then was showing one shoulder. You go to the club now, everything hanging everywhere. Leave nothing to imagination, and damn it, I'm from Texas. It's just an example how fast and how much Bangkok and Thailand has changed. It's unbelievable. I'm a writer, so I observe and I look at this stuff. And 15 years ago, 10 years ago, till today, there are so much more young Thai understand English, wanting to understand the world, wanting to consume knowledge and information, and most importantly, wanting change, wanting to make their own destiny, wanting to make Thailand a thing of their own imagination. And we want to try to capture that voice, capture that imagination, and carry away with it. Let's see where that leads. That's all I want to do.
Question?
Hi, on? Okay. I'm Tom Coiner. I'm with the Korea Economic Reader. I'm based out of Seoul, and I'm active in the Seoul Foreign Correspondents Club, and here we are at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. And the key word to me is correspondent. In the past, and I hope still today, the key factor has been fact gathering. Find out the what, how, when, and perhaps with your editor figure out the why. But like the other speakers, our questioners, here they identify themselves as freelancers. I freelance occasionally for the Korea Economic Reader and get paid. Not Korea Economic Reader, but the Korea Jongang Daily. And I'm on a sabbatical here in Thailand, and I'm doing free journalism for another company because they just don't have the budget. So what's happening is, I wonder who's really a journalist these days, because we have in front small operators for probably economic reasons. You don't have salaries, which means you probably don't have reporters. You are acting as one or a small group of people who are being all three levels of traditional journalism: management, editorial, as well as reporters, the fact gatherers. And that may be okay, except for one thing. We've been talking about fake news. We talk about contrasting opinions and nonsense that goes out and taken seriously. And these people are often not bigger or even smaller than you are, but how do you differentiate yourself, and where is the industry going in journalism when you're actually scaling back to the same level as the fake news perpetrator?
Okay. this is spun out a bit. Sorry, Cod, you're paying salaries to your reporters, I presume.
If they're okay not taking salary, I'm okay not paying. But yeah, generally.
Well, you are.
Well, that's the whole point. Reporters are not taking salaries, or they're taking peanuts.
No. We are. I was being a bit glib.
All right.
And Voronoi, how are you going to pay people?
I am paying them out of my own pocket.
Is he paying decently?
That's a no.
That is the party line. Don't let her deviate.
They get free drinks, they get free food, and they get to hang out with me.
Anyway, it's not a fake news blog. This is a serious operation.
No, we're paid. Our journalists are paid. They have an ethics guide that they have to sign. It's run like a proper news organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's the point, is it ethics? Is how else this is being enforced by certain groups of people like yourselves.
At every organization that I've joined, whether from Jane's, CNN, to Reuters, DPA, whatever, there is a form that you fill that says that you swear to abide by journalism ethics, and I intend to carry that into my newsroom. My journalists will be ethical. They will report facts, and they will give both sides the ability to represent themselves without assumption. And I hope other organizations follow the same thing, because that's how ethical journalism should be.
Good. Julian, question.
Julian Spindler. The Thais are among the most avid consumers of social media in the world. Your basic competitors will be for the news sites. To what extent do you think that social media in Thailand will play a role in Thai political development in the coming year? And specifically, to what extent do you think that social media is accelerating the erosion of the untouchability of the highest institution?
That was two questions, Julian.
Well, I think it's generally agreed on that the success of Future Forward Party is due to social media, by and large. Not 100%, but by and large because of social media. Because they have an understanding of those who are on the digital platform, their like, their dislike, and how to target this audience, which is kind of similar to how Trump won the election. They targeted a certain audience through social media. So it just become another platform, another strategy for political parties and politicians to infiltrate. And since Future Forward Party has set the standard on how to use social media to gain followers and gain votes, other political parties are also following suit. And now everything is on social media. Not every single, but a lot of politicians always take on to social media to express their voice, to try to gain supporters. They always update their Facebook status. Some of them film themselves singing Let It Be in a car, crying about something or another. See? Let me try that again. One even filmed herself singing Let It Be in the car. That's MP Parina, my journalist neighbor at her condo. So politicians are using social media to gain followers, to try to persuade, to convince people, and to actually also gain leverage. Example, Mawarong, the failed Democrat MP, who has been on a crusade, on a rampage, social media, Facebook, every single freaking day. Talking about how horrible Thanathorn and Future Forward and Pheu Thai are, talking about how they are anti-Thailand, how they are Changchat, nation haters, how they are to be crucified and exiled out of Thailand. He talks so much shit that Palang Pracharat Party invited him to join. Because they see him as a useful tool on social media to attack their political opponents. So right now, a lot of the battle and the fighting going on between political parties are on social media. And perhaps it's better that way. Because another platform where they can fight is out on the streets. And I think everyone here remember well what happened the last 2, 3, 4, countless times. We have had that happen. 10 years.
Just to follow on Julian's question, is the online media going to do a better job going into areas that are hitherto off limits, so to speak, for traditional media. Sorry, please answer, but I'd like Tia and I to answer as well.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
Oh,
please.
so it's okay. I was gonna just answer the second question of that question, which is, can social media affect the untouchability of the higher institution? Well, I mean, if you notice, if you've been following Thai social media, especially Twitter, for the last year of 2019, there's been a lot of certain hashtags, certain trends, the hot topics on social media that regard a certain individuals and certain institution that you wouldn't not normally hear in the media, but on social media everything is freewheeling, right? And that the trend is, clearly it's going to be more. I think it's more and more intense because people can't talk about it publicly. They're going to resort it to anonymous discussion on social media. The latest one, which just happened over the weekend, the New Year holidays. I don't have to say what it was, right? About the, the island thing, right? So but if you ask me, would this kind of popularity or this commonplace discussion translate into any reaction? You have to understand that whatever has been happening on social media is anonymous, is nameless. And what could anonymous people do, in real life? To be honest, I don't think it's anything much going to change as long as it remains anonymous. And in fact, because when I was in Chulalongkorn, I studied history, so I like to compare things, to the past. Believe it or not, even before social media, people in Thailand, without Facebook, without website, without Twitter, already knew what was going on in a higher place. They had facts, they had gossips. I can't even remember the first time when I heard certain things about that institution, which just kind of come naturally. Thai people are more resilient. We had this tendency to discuss things behind people's back more than you would have thought. But all these things have been happening for decades. How does this translate into anything, pragmatic or anything practical at all? I don't think so. And social media is just another form of gossip, I think, that it could happen more and more, but in the end, without real people taking real action, it's not going to change anything. But that's just my personal opinion. And people who use their real names, use their academic or social status to speak about this kind of thing, you know where they are. You know what happened to them. And I think they made such a good example of these people that I don't think anyone else is gonna follow anytime soon. That's just my pessimistic perspective about this thing. Yeah. God, come on.
Sorry, I don't have anything to add.
Florina?
Not really, but we when we measure in terms of the quantity of the people who between digital and the traditional media, the way we see, especially compare between TV and the digital. TV is getting older, whereas the digital is kind of the people who below 35. That's what we see in the quantity way. Yeah.
Dave.
Dave Kendall from the Bangkok Post. Thank you all for a wide-ranging...
Did I say something about the Bangkok Post?
Don't cry.
I'm sure you will.
It's still open, is it?
We are still open, actually. Yeah. And in fact, actually, Warren, what you said about our younger demographic, our audience in their 20s, is actually growing quite considerably, to some of our surprise.
We haven't launched yet.
That's true. My question is about content and how to get people to pay for quality content. It's been good to hear about the idealism, the commitment to the truth. It can be depressing to be a journalist when you could spend 6 months researching a story, you could spend $1 million on a documentary, and some guy with his webcam is ranting about the same issue, and it takes 5 minutes to do and to post, and they get more views. So my question is really how to persuade people to pay for the truth when in the digital era there seems to be less and less demand for well-researched stories. And you guys have an idea about the content you'll be presenting, but when the numbers come in, where will you draw the line between sticking to what you believe to be is the truth or pandering to your audience's prejudices, giving them the digital dopamine hits that are really going to pay the bills? Where will you draw that line?
You want me to start? Can I start?
For paywall, you have paywall. You're going to have paywall.
Where do I draw the line? Okay, if I may rephrase your question to better understand it, the question is there a line to be drawn between contributing to an echo chamber so that you get more clicks or standing true to your ideals? I don't think, for me, I can't speak for my colleagues, that is a question worth answering, because as a journalist, you should never pander. And if you're contributing to the echo chamber, you're part of what's wrong with society, so I will not be doing that.
For me, there's no line to be drawn. I mean, I have been speaking for maybe an hour. You guys pretty much see the way I am. You know, you either take it or you leave it. But I do believe in quality content, in the research, in the angle, in the perspectives, in the facts and the evidences. But also, if you're going to be successful in the digital world, is the packaging and the presentation of this content. Is a product that I believe I can produce and put it out there for the public to consume and like, and hopefully follow, and hopefully share, and hopefully one day in the future, if I'm able or Disrupt is able to become a brand, then perhaps that's the time to have a paywall. Just like the successful established news outlet out there, for example, the New York Times has a paywall, right? Maybe one day in the future. But pandering never works, at least not in my experience, because if you have 10 people reading you have to pander to 10 different people. You can't do that. The best way is to stick in what you do, stick in what you believe in, and if they see what you see, then it will happen. And if they don't see what you see, well, at least my mom will tell me what a great guy I am.
Can I just add to that real quick? If you want to have hard conversations, if you want to address issues at its core and not just a cursory inspection of whatever issue it is at hand that you want to look at, you're going to offend someone, because there's someone that's not going to agree with how you see things. There's not going to be someone who agrees with the people that you've sought for quotes. You're always at risk of offending people. So instead of pandering, why not obligate yourself to the truth instead of who your target audience is? Why not tell them what the truth is and let them make their own decisions, and if they're offended, so be it. Because if you go around your life, not just journalism, but if you go around life trying not to offend anyone, then you become someone not worth respecting, not worth upholding. You have no values because all you want is to please everyone. If that's your editorial line as a journalist, then you might as well not start. It's my opinion.
Questions?
My name's Nirowit. I am not a journalist. That's okay. First of all, really excited about Thai Inquirer and Disrupt. I think it's exciting that there's new publications. But my question's for Kuntir and I. Just now
you got me in the first half, not gonna lie.
Just now someone mentioned the Xinhua deal, right? And you've clarified many times there's no financial transaction of any kind.
Sure.
And you've said elsewhere that you believe that the AP and Xinhua are actually at the same level. So running articles from Xinhua is just like running articles from the AP, and it's just it's beneficial for your readers. I just want to. This is a really good faith question. I just really want to know. Can you expand on that? Can you clarify why you believe that? Thanks.
Right. Actually, thanks for asking that question, because I just remember just now from your question, another trend that I should have mentioned for 2019 is we're seeing more and more, how to call it, participation or influence, or you call it, by Chinese media, in Thai media. More Thai media are signing, news channel agreement with Xinhua or others. We have a CMG, a China Media Group or whatever, and I think we probably gonna see more of those in 2020. Honestly, I think I can't really say, because I'm not working for Xinhua, but I think what they're trying to do is they're probably trying to rebrand themselves as some kind of alternative news wire service. If you go on Xinhua nowadays, or if you actually have read their contents, or if you actually have signed MOU with them, they're basically almost like replacing AP, but free, basically. And like I said, more and more, I think media in Thailand have signed up on this. Now, the biggest advantage is it's free. That's the biggest advantage. And, Xinhua rebranding and then this new model operation comes at a time when Thai media happens to be the most cash-strapped ever. It just fits so well. One side we have with this Chinese media with unlimited money, of paying their own reporters without asking for subscription return. On the other hand, we have this Thai media desperate for contents and desperate for anything free. And this marriage was made in 2019, and I think it's going to happen again in 2022. 2020 as well. Now, if you ask me, of course, Xinhua is not the same as Associate Press. Xinhua is state-owned, mouthpiece. You can say that. But when it comes to, when it comes to the content, when most of media in Thailand who use Xinhua, they don't look at it as a propaganda. They see it as, a news wire service. Oh, we use AP, we use AFP, we use Reuters. These are, we had to pay for those. Why don't we use just Xinhua and we get it for free or whatever? This kind of calculation is going to matter more, for people in the media in Thailand than this, question of China versus the West or whatever. And if you ask me for my opinion, as someone who has been working with Xinhua, I think we will continue to see more and more content, made by China in Thai media, both English and Thai. If that's what's happening.
When you have Xinhua covering a freak pneumonia outbreak that could be contagious, you can obviously see that there's a lot of value in that. When you have them covering the Beijing side of the demonstrations in Hong Kong, that's when eyebrows go up.
Yeah,
so how
that's
skeptical
right.
are you?
I mean, to go back to 2019. Actually, you're right. I mean, the funny thing is when a lot of media was signing corporations with Xinhua, right? I mean, throughout 2019. But the thing that actually kind of triggered people was actually when the Hong Kong protest happened. I don't know, for some reason, people took offense, of Chinese media trying to sort of influence coverage when it comes to the protest in Hong Kong. It's just ironic that they're already doing it, in other fields. But people were so myopic, when you just look at Hong Kong. Whereas, like I said, if you just take a look at Thai media in general, the stuff that they report, they syndicate, from China, you will be surprised at how much they use the content from Xinhua about, in terms of domestic Chinese affairs or whatever.
Question.
Hi, I'm Daniel. So I'm not a journalist. I work for an international education company. So a lot of the conversation tonight has been about sort of the English levels in Thailand and how more and more younger Thai people have higher English levels. So my organization actually tests thousands of students in Thailand every year, and we've found that the English level in Thailand has actually been decreasing. So does that impact or influence how you view your ability to reach out to a broader audience in Thailand?
You want to go?
Decreasing.
Decreasing from what?
So we have an index called the EFEPI.
Can you substantiate a little, just numbers-wise?
So it's based on this free English test that we have. That we have tens of thousands of students in Thailand and across the world, and so we rank countries based on their English levels. And so we do have an index, and actually we have a press conference next week if anyone wants to join. But we found that over the years, Thailand has decreased since we started measuring it.
By large measures, by small margin?
By small margin, but
not improving for sure.
Okay.
But it's still better than Prayut's English, right?
Sorry?
Thank you to hear me. That may be so, but what you're gonna do? We're still gonna do it in English. I still believe there's enough audience and enough market out there, and if not, just by having this platform out there, those that are interested in the English language can obviously improve and work upon. We have 70 million people in this country. I don't need 70 million to read my platform. I don't even need 40 million. I don't even need 20 million. To make impact, to do something, to make a change, I need thousands and tens of thousands. That's the start. What we do here is not going to change society. What we do here is not going to create a national dialogue. What we do here is a part of the equation to push it forward. And we do what we can, what we know how. But the important thing is we do.
For me, I'd love to see your quantitative measures because that's actually really interesting. Because I did this story about maybe it was eight or 9 months ago, where we looked at the number of schools that taught English as a part of their core program, either Duolingo, not the app, either bilingual on a bilingual basis, or the start of international programs within traditionally Thai schools, and you see those measures increasing across the board. Maybe qualitatively it is decreasing, but in terms of the people interested in English, the total number of people who want to learn English has only increased. And by providing a platform where they can go read English, that helps educate and enhances the national conversation. The last part of that is also, it is to the benefit of this government, and it is to the benefit of this government that people don't read English, because English language offers alternative takes to traditional Thai media. So the more we can do to disrupt the system, as it were, the better, I think.
Right, final question.
Bradley Martin is my name. Some of you know Bill Page. I'll use his occupational reference. I'm a retired asshole.
I don't believe you.
One day I'll join the club.
Okay. I came here in 1965 in the Peace Corps. I'm going to argue with you a little bit about how wonderful it is that people are speaking good English. I think this is great. And one of the things that we were trying to do as Peace Corps volunteers 55 years ago, along with eradicating mosquitoes and building decent toilets and so on. It was a long time ago, but it's not enough. What you really need is for people to study history. And what I have noticed about my Thai friends is that damn few of them have any conception of world history. I think this is a huge problem in your educational system, and I'd like to see it fixed. I mean, you raise wonderful people to be doctors. They're great. If you go to Bumrungrad, they're terrific doctors over there, and around it at the lesser hospitals as well. But I don't see very many people who are talking about the world as it has come down. And I've known some people very intimately who wished that they knew more about it, but their education system had not provided it. Anyway, I'd just like to throw that out, that it's really great that people are speaking better English. It's really great that the income level is so much higher than it was 55 years ago when I got here, but people do not have a concept of history, and I think that's a problem. So I'll just throw it out to you and see if anyone wants to speak to that.
I agree completely. I graduated with a degree in politics and history, which means I didn't have much ways to make money, so I became a journalist. And as a teacher at Thammasat, I do notice there's a big problem with Thais not understanding history. But I think English is a solution to that, because if you understand English, then you are able to consume more content from around the world, history included. But also, let's be frank, the main problem in Thailand is that we don't study history, we study mythology, and we mistake them from history. So that's a lot of problem, but that's why we are where we are at today, here and now. So hopefully, if people understand more English and they can consume content and read more books in English, they can get other and different perspectives about Thailand, as well as the world. And perhaps one day in the future, whether near or far, there will be 1 year in Thailand where I do not see a news story about some students or some shopping malls or somebody dressing up something in a Nazi uniform with a swastika because we understand enough English to read about World War II in English. Damn it.
I completely agree with everything Vornai said. I will take exception to the swastika. It was ours first. They stole it. It is an Asian symbol of mythology and good luck. Screw the Germans for taking it and ruining it. It was ours to begin with. It should still be ours, and I will wear a swastika because it's not a symbol of fascism. It is a symbol of good faith and good luck in Hinduism and Buddhism. Thank you.
Hey, wait, will you wear a swastika? Where?
If I choose to, it wouldn't be my support for Nazi Germany.
Right.
It's a reverse swastika, you know. Just
well,
correct.
since the question were touching
look,
history.
Just one final question. So he's politely standing there.
I was going to.
Is this on? Oh, I'm just a visitor from Canada. I just have to say I'm so impressed with how you presented. You said you're not foreign correspondents, you're Thai correspondents. You have a big responsibility, and I just have to support all that you've been all saying. You have a big responsibility to channel these discussions. If I'm correct in what you said, you're not there to espouse political parties. You're there to go deeper and talk about the dialogue going on in the country, and especially the young people. I just commend you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll end on that.
Do better. Just before I shut it, just one very, very small question. Is there any sign of this online media phenomenon in other languages? And I'm thinking Chinese particularly, but Japanese. Is there any? We talked about the power of English, and that's our Western bias in the club. But is there any other language that's pushing?
We have Khalsot Burmese.
Well,
Malay?
Malay, sure. I mean, Malay Sinki's amazing, but they're kind of in English as well. In the Philippines, you have what Maria Rez is doing, which is amazing work, and she's being persecuted by the government for it. In Pakistan, you have Dawn, who has sort of been under sort of a lot of pressure from Imran Khan's government. So you have these pockets of resistance around the region. They're always under pressure, but they do a good job, and people flock to them because they don't take sides and they speak truth to power. And that's what I hope all three of us, and I don't know, three of us will do.
If I may add, in Thailand, in Thai, there's the Standard, which has managed to capture the young generation audience and fill that gap, and they've done a wonderful job at it.
Right. Well,
and Prashat Thai did a good job as well.
We've run for 2 hours. I've had 2 panelists take pee breaks, which is very unusual. So they're on short-term tanks. I'd like to thank you for a very interesting evening, Kod, Runchita, Tiranai and Voronai. And maybe we'll come back again this time next year and see how it's all going and whether the gung-ho idealism is panning out. Anyway, thank you for coming to the club.
Sorry, one last thing, since we're in the social media world, do you mind if I can get everyone on my Instagram?
Oh God. Without filter, I hope. No like dog face or stuff like that.
And this is optional. You can do this.
Come forward.
Or not.
That's the Boy Scout sign.
That's what you tell yourself.
You need to stand for the back.
No, it's going to be a selfie.
I don't need to.
Do something interesting. Wave your hands in the air. Tiranai, get in.
I'm in.
You're in. We're all in. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Are we having more? There you go. See you all on social media.
Are we going to end up as some kind of criminal evidence, you know?